That looks pretty cool, man. Raika was cooking here in the recent video. Endgame Diablo 4 needs.
At the bottom.
Many people have said for a long time that Diablo 4 is lacking some proper endgame, and Raika over here made a couple suggestions here in his new video, the endgame Diablo 4 desperately needs. Let's check it out. Hey folks.
Folks, this is Riker, and this is the kind of endgame I'd like to see added to Diablo 4. Throughout Diablo 4's life, I've spoken a lot about adding an endgame meta progression system. In this video, I'll explain exactly what I mean by that, and I'll show a mock-up example of what that can look like in Diablo 4. This is the kind of stuff that would keep me playing the game for longer. Not because I'd feel I have to finish the season, but because I feel the game still gives me goals and meaningful progression to chase. Now, if you hate Diablo 4, if you think Diablo 4 is a bad game, then this is not going to change your mind. It's not going to make
D4 bad, guys. Yeah, there's many of those as well.
You like it. But if you feel there's just something missing.
But I mean, you know, D4 really, in my opinion as well, Diablo 4 really needs some help in the end game. So I'm very excited about the various suggestions here. I already posted many videos about this as well. I think in many cases the end game is too easy. And yeah, we'll see.
To keep you playing, then this may be the missing puzzle piece. I'm going to start with some game design talk to explain exactly what I'm trying to achieve here, but if you want to just skip ahead to the idea itself, timestamps are below. Meanwhile, we've had the reveal of Season 9, Sins of the Haradrim. To find out what that's all about, you can watch my video covering it, and you can find that on my website, Riker.com, which brings us to a word from this video's sponsor.
People were also like really negative about the PTR so far. I mean, there was a couple bugs, you know, there's some crazy masterworking stuff going on the PTR and just various things, and obviously like another season of powers. Like people don't really like it at the moment. We'll see. There's still some fun builds out there, but there's definitely a lot of issues, guys. But many people forget that's what the PTR is for. We give some feedback, so hopefully we'll have a better Season 9.
Sponsor. I built my website using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field. All thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Squarespace even has a new AI tool called Design Intelligence,
that looks so fast,
which combines 2 decades of industry-leading web design expertise with
soon we're gonna have web design AI, man. It's just gonna do it automatically.
The latest AI tech to empower you to build a beautiful-looking, personalized website made exactly for your needs and your unique identity. Squarespace even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as soon as possible. Squarespace is flexible for any kind of website with tons of design options to choose from. You can easily connect all your social accounts and also upload your video content and organize your video library. You can sell products or services, and with Squarespace Payment, you have an easy way to manage your payments in one place. You're just a few clicks away from being able to receive payments through your website, all while offering customers popular payment methods like Apple Pay, ClearPay, Klarna, and ACH Direct Debit. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. So head to squarespace.com/Riker or click the link in the description to start your free trial and use code Riker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Riker. All right, diving into things here, I'll start by saying I am not a game designer, but I have played Dungeons & Dragons for 25 years as a dungeon master. I like to design and tinker with a lot of systems. And before I go and add a system or change anything in my game, I like to first take the approach of examining why. If I want to add a system, why do I want to add it? What problem am I trying to solve by either adding or changing something? So that's the lens through which I'm going to be looking at this. So for me in Diablo 4, my problem is that I reach a point where I no longer feel incentivized to keep progressing. Yeah, I can keep grinding Paragon. I'm not Paragon 300 yet. Yeah, I can keep trying to perfect my gear. I'm not, 4G.
But this is like already the problem, right? You say like you can keep grinding Paragon, but the Paragon is capped, the boards are capped, and also the best way to grind Paragon is to do content that is not even remotely challenging to your character, because of they increase the pit HP and damage, but they never increase the XP on the high pit. So you're always just doing the easiest content that is no challenge to you if you want to be efficient at all. And there also is not really, like, you keep grinding your Paragon or you keep min-maxing your character, but there's not really any, like, real hard or rewarding content for your character to do once you reach that point.
Everywhere, perfect rolls, all the masterwork, but why? Yeah. I can already crush all T4 why? Content. Exactly. I can defeat every boss in the game. Sure, I can try to push deeper in the pit, but why?
Not rewarding.
Just to face the same monsters, the same experience.
There's no leaderboard. You don't get any more gear. You don't get any more XP. And your glyphs are probably already 100. I mean, if you're pushing, like, yeah.
But with bigger numbers. Now, progression is by itself inherently rewarding, right? Seeing your level rise, experiencing your power increase, that is a reward in and of itself. It feels good. But eventually, the time required to gain a power increase becomes too long, and the amount of increased power becomes too little to retain your attention. At least mine. I stop feeling like I'm progressing, or I stop getting good enough feelings like I'm progressing fast.
I think 100% many people have this exact problem. Let me know in the comments in the chat. Like, I think at some point, like, there's just, like, not really much to do anymore, and for a lot of people that's already after 1 week.
Enough, and I get disinterested. So my proposed solution to this problem is the endgame meta progression system. ARPGs are at their core philosophically simple games. Invest time and effort, get rewarded with progression. This is the basic reward loop that keeps us engaged. Whether we're grinding XP or we're grinding gear, time equals progression. The feeling of progression keeps us playing. Once we stop feeling like we are making meaningful progression, many of us lose the drive to keep playing. So enter the concept of meta progression. Now, let's lay out some definitions here. Progression is what I define to mean every system that furthers your character's power, your level, your gear, your masterworking, your glyphs. These are all progression systems. These are all things that you can invest time into in order to become more powerful over a series of progressive, discrete steps.
Now, and also, guys, people like to feel powerful. Recently, there's been a lot of nerfs in a lot of games. Like, they keep nerfing stuff. It's not only in Diablo, it's also in other games. I just always am more of a fan of, like, add more endgame content and add more challenge and keep buffing the weak builds rather than nerfing the fun on the builds that are fun to play and that are strong.
Now, meta progression is what I define.
Obviously, it's always easier to just nerf the character, so there's no need for new endgame. But it would be way cooler to have more and challenging endgame rather than nerf the character, in my opinion.
To mean any system of progression that exists outside of character power. So technically, Diablo 4's original Battle Pass is a meta progression system. By investing your time, you are unlocking additional rewards over a series of progressive, discrete steps. But that's not the kind of thing that I want to add. What D4 lacks, in my opinion, which competing ARPGs offer, is a robust meta progression system related to end game activities. And it's the reason that a lot of people say that D4 has no end game. Because Diablo 4 actually offers a multitude of activities to engage with in the end game. You got the pit, lair bosses, infernal hordes, nightmare dungeons, undercity, world bosses, legion events, whispers, helltide, dark citadel. That's 10 right there. And, maybe you don't like most of these, but they are in the game. They are things to do.
The thing is, like, T4 is... Like, this is, like, the problem I have with the new dungeon escalation system that we've just been testing here on Season 9. Like, they say it's endgame, but it's just more Torment 4. Like, it's not really a challenge. You have this, like, awesome new keys. You have the dungeon escalation. But you're just doing T4 dungeons with all its perks and problems. But it's just not really, like, I feel like a big step for the end game. Just a different T4 dungeon. Like, okay, maybe it's a bit more rewarding, but it's still T4. Which is like, we outscale that content 100x usually.
The game doesn't have a lack of activities to engage with. What it lacks is a reason for us to engage with these activities beyond just their rewards. And those rewards contribute to progression. So once we no longer feel satisfaction from progression, we feel no need to engage with these activities, or at least, specific activities become increasingly less enticing depending on what they offer as rewards. My solution here is an endgame meta progression system that will 1. Offer players reason to engage with different activities beyond their existing progression rewards.
Sounds good.
2. Present a feeling of meaningful meta progression so that once character progression ceases to feel satisfying, meta progression can keep players engaged. 3. Allow players to tailor their endgame experience to activities that they prefer to engage with.
That sounds like the Atlas system from Path of Exile, right? Where you can literally choose, like, I don't know, I like to do Breach, so I invest more points or my experience points or my progression points into Breach. Or, in Diablo, it could be like, I don't know, I really like to do the Helltide, so I can make the Helltide super rewarding, where I get more Forgotten Souls, I get more gem fragments in the Helltides. Or maybe you really like the Pit, and then you can get, I don't know, extra obols or something. Like there's a lot of stuff. And I think the Atlas system it would be like, at least that's what it's sounding to be hinting at. And PoE does it very well with the Atlas system, I feel. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like you can take some good inspiration here and there and everywhere.
And 4, allow for progressively larger aspirational pinnacle challenges to chase. So here's my proposed system, and it's going to look familiar to Last Epoch and Path of Exile players. I'm going to present 2 versions of this. The default I'll show is the easiest to implement version. This is if we want something like this in the game just ASAP. Beyond that, though, I'll talk about ways that we can make this even better, kind of an aspirational version, if we can allocate more resources and add new content. So here it is. You start off, you're in-game, and then you either go to the Tree of Whispers, click on it, or you click your handy keyboard shortcut, and boom, it brings up this menu.
I remember
here.
this image.
So what are we seeing here? Well, there are
Diablo 4
2 parts of
Endgame?
the system. You got the branches up top, and you got the...
I remember when they released this image, like that tree. That looks pretty cool, man. Raika was cooking here in the recent video. Endgame Diablo 4 needs.
At the bottom. The branches will be the activities we can do to progress our tree, and the roots form a passive tree that we can allocate points into. We're going to look at each of these separately, but they are tied together. So let's look at the top first, and here, we'll enable our high visibility mode. Obviously, look, I'm just one guy. I don't have an art team here, so pretend this all looks sexy and awesome. So what you're seeing would be a tree that's already in progress, but the first time you bring up the tree, you would have 5 options to pick from. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are your 5 originator branches, whatever you want to call them. These are the core branches, and the game will randomly assign a activity to each of these 5 nodes. And these activities can be drawn from any instance activity in the game. In other words, no open world activities. So here, for instance, we got Infernal Hordes, we got Undercity, we got Pit, we got Nightmare Dungeon, and we got Lair Boss. So those were the starting 5 options that I drew, for instance, the game assigned to me randomly. And in an aspirational version of this, right, we can add more activities.
Being able to customize what you want to do and what you want to focus on, and then having some farming strategies around it, it adds quite a lot of possibilities to it, for sure.
Activities into the game, so there would be more potential options here. And even just over time, if more activities are added, these could be fit into the tree. Now, what these things constitute are a new kind of whisper. We'll call them ancient whispers. And this does not replace regular whispers in any way. Those still continue to exist as normal in addition to this system. Sometimes you can even probably complete 2 whispers at once, a regular and an ancient whisper at the same time. But regardless, completing an ancient whisper here will reward you with ancient favors, tracked up here over at the top. So your goal, in short, is to fill up the favor bar to earn passive points to allocate into your roots below. You're going to then level up your tree, and you're going to unlock increasingly difficult pinnacle boss fights. So a red whisper here would signify a whisper that you can...
And I also like, bear with me for a second here, but I also would like if, you can't just max everything out, just like in the Atlas 3 and PoE. You have to choose at some point, right? Like you can't, there should definitely be like a respec for this, but you have to choose. You can't just do everything. And the respec needs to cost quite some significant amount of materials, gold, whatever. Right? But I like that you have to choose at some point. Like, because it just gets so boring. Like, in the end, if you just get everything, like, that's definitely not how it should be.
Complete right now. A
Make
white
some
whisper,
meaningful choices.
these 3 over here, those are already completed. And a gray background one, these are whispers that will unlock by completing a red whisper. So I haven't done this whisper, but the game shows me what whispers will be available already before doing it, so I get to decide, do I want to do this one and unlock those. If I were to do this whisper, then these 2 would become red, and what would actually happen is the branch is going to then grow. There'll be some sick animation, right? Ooh. And, more branches will spread, like we've seen happen up here. These all started off with just the original, couple options. I completed this whisper, and the tree dynamically grows as we complete them. Cool. Now, some of these branches will dead end, right? This right here, this one dead ended because it's colliding with this other branch. But ultimately, you should never be able to brick your tree because it's all going to keep spreading out radially. So how do you complete one of these whispers? Well, you select any red whisper, and then you still need to have the required key to run whatever that activity is. So let's say I select this nightmare dungeon over here. An interface pops up, and I can slot in one of my Nightmare Dungeon keys, pop it in, and then I get zooped into the Nightmare Dungeon. Easy as that. If I click on this Infernal Hordes, then I put in my Infernal Hordes key. If I click on the pit here, where if I don't have a pit one available, but I click on the pit, I got to select a pit level. I have to have the pit materials to open the pit. You get the idea. So you complete the whisper, and then you get rewarded some amount of favors. Depending on the difficulty of the whisper, they'll give different favors. And you can also fail the whisper, however. Either maybe if you die once, you fail the whisper.
I always think there should be a punishment as well. Like, it's just does not all be free. Like, if you actually die, I like that there's a punishment.
Or there can be some other fail condition, whatever the case is. You can still complete whatever event you're doing, and the tree branch will still grow, but you won't get any favors from a failed whisper. Now, whispers have a chance to spawn as magic, rare, legendary, and even unique. And these will have affixes on them that increase challenge and reward in specific ways. So increased challenge examples could be stuff like increased enemy attack speed, enemies gain resistance to a certain element.
This is basically the juicing, like where you make the enemies, the whatever, more of a challenge. You make the enemies stronger. You make your foes stronger. But you also make them more rewarding. I feel this entire system is fully missing right now in the game. Like, I was kind of hoping that the dungeon escalation would have something like this, where you can like ultra juice the key to make it like, maybe make it 100 times more difficult than Torment 4, 1,000 times more difficult than Torment 4, but then make it give more rewards. Like just doing Nightmare Dungeons in T4 and having them escalated, but still the same difficulty, it's just not it.
Enemies deal increased damage. Enemies' attacks have increased area of effect. Enemies have increased life, increased barrier. Enemies take longer to be staggered. Debuffs on enemies expire faster. Enemies bypass X amount of armor or X amount of resistance.
Dungeon juice.
Enemies take reduced damage from crits. Whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can come up with any number of increased difficulty things. And then every challenge affix also comes paired with a random reward affix, which could be stuff like increased XP, increased rune drop chance, increased mythic drop chance, increased ancestral drop chance. You get the idea. So magic whispers will have one challenge and one reward affix. Rares will have 2, legendaries will have 3. But here's the kicker. These affixes do not apply to just the whisper you're running. They modify the entire branch moving forward. So if I had over here...
This is some affixes that are actually meaningful here, like more mythic drop chance, increased ancestrals, barrier half health, enemies 50 cold res, debuffs 50% sooner. I mean, they can do like so much here. Armor pierce, resistance pierce, make it dangerous, make it exciting, exactly.
Or let's say over here, a rare whisper, then the modifiers would affect everything moving forward. and it's going to progressively stack more and more as you go deeper down a branch.
Like this one here, I would remove. You earn 10% more XP. It should be like 1,000% more XP or something, like some crazy stuff.
So ramping up reward and challenge. Then the unique whispers can be some like weird, interesting challenges or rewards. Like maybe there's a unique lair boss whisper that makes you fight the Avarice world boss instead of a normal lair boss. And there's like goblin packs spawning everywhere and you get the Uber Duriel reward chest. Maybe there's a unique Nightmare Dungeon Whisper that is filled with nothing but butchers. Maybe there's a unique Infernal Hordes Whisper that every 10 runs, you decide to move on to the boss fight or go another 10 rounds to collect more ether, stacking even more modifiers. Maybe there's a unique Pit Whisper that gives you a guaranteed upgrade attempt for every minute that you have left on the clock. Maybe there's a unique Undercity Whisper that lets you pick a specific legendary rune at the end as a reward. Now, tree level also comes into play. So,
quite some cool
your
ideas.
first tree, before you've completed any whisper turn-ins, most whispers are just going to be normal. Maybe you'll get some magic ones. Sometimes a rare one. But as you continue your turn-ins and you level up your tree, you increase the odds of getting higher rarity whispers. So as the tree levels up, you're getting increasingly rare whispers, which are going to then ramp up the challenge and reward. And we'll say that the tree has 5 levels. So the max tree level is 5. More on that soon. We'll also say the tree resets in 2 ways. First, once you fill your Ancient Favor bar, you can choose to either keep going with this tree, or you can then choose to tackle a Pinnacle boss. If you beat the Pinnacle boss, you then reset your tree, you level it up, and you start over again. If you fail the Pinnacle boss fight, then you lose some amount of favors, and you have to grind up more whispers before you can challenge the boss again.
I really like that there's a penalty, like I said this before. Else it's just free, you know? Like, obviously you should be able to try again, but it should take some time before you can try just again. So they're actually like the death would mean something here in this progression system.
Now, if for whatever reason you no longer like your tree setup, maybe you feel blocked or you just, whatever, you don't like it, you can choose to reset your tree, but if you reset your tree, you lose all your favors. So that's a basic gameplay loop here. You pick your whisper that you want to run based on what activities that you like to do and what rewards you want to chase. You're making decisions, right, that are going to impact what activity you're about to do. You're ramping up difficulty, you're ramping up reward, you're building towards a Pinnacle boss fight. And as we said, 5 tree levels, 5 Pinnacle bosses to conquer. The easiest way to implement these bosses...
I was so hoping already when Vessel of Hatred came out that we're getting more Pinnacle bosses of the caliber of Lilith, you know? Like, I was hoping that the Mephisto fight would be like a Lilith tier level fight, like actually challenging. That would be cool, man. I think the layer bosses, they look cool, but they kind of meh. You know, like they get one shot, and if they don't get one shot, they have some annoying mechanics. It's like,
Bosses would be just recycling existing bosses, but hopefully changing them somehow. Maybe doing cute things like having to fight 2 or more bosses at once. You know, maybe you get a solo instance with a world boss, or a solo instance versus multiple world bosses.
Solo
whatever.
versus a world boss.
You know, the idea is we get new bosses, of course, right? Pinnacle, best implementation is fully new bosses, but we can have temporarily placeholder bosses in the meantime. The bosses should be challenging. They shouldn't be impossible, except for maybe the final boss. He should be by far the most challenging thing in the game. Absolute top tier Pinnacle challenge. And each Pinnacle boss should offer some kind of unique reward that you can't get anywhere else in the game. Stuff like, stuff that isn't overpowered, such that people feel like, oh, I have to go do this, but stuff that is at least useful. So maybe Pinnacle Boss 1 lets you enchant an amulet and pick deterministically one specific affix. So, like, you can pick a specific passive to have on that amulet. Pinnacle Boss 2 maybe lets you add 2 perfect tempers of your choice to an item. Pinnacle Boss 3 lets you manually select all the masterworking crits on an item. Pinnacle Boss 4 lets you max out one affix of your choice on an item. And Pinnacle Boss 5 lets you personalize an item. It gains your name. So you pick some item, then it becomes, you know, Riker's Tyrael's Might. It's like a status symbol kind of thing. And then
we had this in Diablo 2 already with Charzy, yes? Man, yeah, there's a lot they could do, you know, always.
It also adds an extra affix of some kind. Nothing too strong, but something universally useful. Like,
I mean, maybe something crazy could even be lets you basically transform an affix into a greater affix. So let's say you have like a good 2GA amulet, then you can roll. You know, if like this would be like the endgame reward. You have a 2GA good amulet, and then you can roll the third affix. Let's say we roll it to glass cannon, and then we can transfer that glass cannon into a greater affix or something, like once, once a season or something. Or once, like when you beat like some very hard content that takes quite some hours to get to. That'd be cool, man.
10 all resist and 200 armor. It's more about the bragging rights at this point than having like a really useful item. And then if you want to redo any of these rewards, you have to fully reset your tree back to level 1 or, whatever. We can work out something that people find fair. Now, it says 10, favors over here, but that number should probably be higher, maybe 20, maybe 50. I don't know. And the higher in Torment that you play, the more favors every Whisper should give. So your progress in the tree will be much faster in Torment 4 than in Torment.
Maybe it could even juice the entirety of Torment 4 at some point as well. Like maybe there are some notes as well where it basically makes Torment 4 more of a challenge, but also more rewarding. And then you can, like, all the activities would scale with it in some way, right? So then you can do, you can do the Helltide, and the Helltide is going to be finally challenging. Just like what they had with the Profane Mind Cages, where suddenly the monster level rises by 10 or by 100, and the monsters gain, like, 10 times more HP, but they also drop, like, double or triple the rewards, or, the cinders, or, like, some craziness, like, something.
Torment 1. And every time you level up the tree, it's going to take more favors to unlock the next level. How does this interact with multiplayer, you ask? Well, probably only the party leader gets to progress their ancient favors, so you'd want to take turns passing around party lead.
That's basically the problem that they already solved in Path of Exile, right? Like the Atlas tree, like it works in groups and everybody has their own Atlas tree, kind of. Like it works.
Okay, so that about covers the top of the tree. Let's go look at the passives down
roots.
Here. You're ultimately going to earn 50 points. 50 passive points that you can apply in your tree down here however you want. You're going to earn 10 passive points every tree level. So every time you achieve, for the first time, 1/10 of the whispers needed to unlock the next tree level, you're going to get 1 passive point. So that means the 50th passive point, you only get by beating the final Pinnacle boss. Not a big deal if you don't get it, but it's a nice little capstone. Now, the point of the passive tree is to really personalize and customize your endgame experience, both in terms of what you are doing and the rewards you're getting. So the affixes on the whispers up here, right, the magic and the rare whispers, they're going to be generic, things that can apply to everything else that spawns on the tree. But in the passive tree, you can pick more specialized kinds of rewards for specific activities. So, first off, you're going to have nodes that you can invest into, multiple points into, right? That's going to increase the chance of a certain activity spawning as an ancient whisper. So let's say you just blast a ton of points into chance to spawn pit and chance to spawn infernal hordes, then most of your ancient whispers up here that are going to spawn whenever you get a new tree set up, they ought to be mostly pit and infernal hordes. Then there can be points that you allocate to enhance the rewards of specific activities, like more glyph upgrade attempts in pits. Maybe, pits get a third floor. Maybe infernal horde keys will always have 10 waves. Maybe you get increased ether drops in infernal hordes, increased chance of Shade of Belial popping up in lair bosses. Maybe Shade of Belial can spawn in any instance, right? Depending on how you want to like group these together.
Pretty cool.
You can have the ones that apply to more than one activity be things that kind of branch together and branch forward, things that are more disconnected off to the side. So you can have more generic, kinds of nodes that'll apply in multiple cases. So maybe increased chance of butcher spawning, increased chance of goblin spawning, increased chance of goblin pack.
Also the butcher, man. That's like, it used to be such a scary enemy, like fighting the fresh meat for the first time. I remember that so well. And now Butcher and Torment 4 is just such a joke. And if there's like some notes here that makes Butcher into like the Ultra Butcher or the Uber Butcher or whatever, like really juice him and really make him rewarding to kill as well. So you're actually afraid again when you hear, fresh meat. And then you can, like, I don't know, make him, like, I don't know, plus 100 levels harder or something, like, in the end. Some crazy stuff, man, to juice it and then also make it rewarding.
Spawning, increased
maybe
mob
Malphas.
density, increased elite chance. So, like, mob density, for instance, wouldn't make sense for lair bosses, but, makes sense for pretty much everything else. Then you can
also, like, maybe you can have, like, a chance for the Bloodseekers to assault you again. You remember those, like, 3 crazy Bloodseekers of Season 2 that basically were, like, already having a chance to assault you in dungeons and stuff, and they were, like, the Giga bosses, and then you can make them the Pit 25 Bloodseekers on the final level or something, like some crazy stuff.
Even have specific rewards tied to some of these things, like increased chance for the Butcher to drop a Mythic, increased chance for elites to drop greater affix items, stuff like that. There can even be some nodes where you select a legendary aspect and you're more likely to get this aspect to drop. So if you're trying to fish for the perfect version of that aspect, right, it'll help you complete your codex. Or, select an item type, you're more likely to get this item type to drop. Let's say you're fishing for perfect gloves. Or maybe even select a specific unique item. Or, maybe you have to have it already, you slot that unique item in, and then when a unique item drops, it's more likely to be this same unique item. Again, folks, a lot of this is going to be very familiar to Last Epoch and Path of Exile players. Basically, you're customizing what kind of activities.
But that doesn't make it bad or in any way, like, less amazing. Like, these systems in some shape or form are already proven to be working and also being liked by a huge part of the ARPG community. Obviously, Diablo shouldn't do it like exactly the same, but they could look at the concepts, and keep cooking with the concepts, just like Riker here has done, and make something truly amazing, because these are proven to be working and people are liking these systems already. Don't have to completely reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of Diablo-specific stuff, that can be done with this.
You're doing and what kind of rewards you're getting. So you can build towards, for instance, getting nightmare dungeons to spawn more often, getting nightmare dungeons to spawn with goblin packs, and having goblins be more likely to drop uniques and more.
Or maybe even, I don't know, a nightmare dungeon has a guaranteed chance for a mythic goblin to appear or something, like I still haven't seen that mythic goblin, he's just a hoax.
Odds of a unique dropping to become Fists of Fate. That's going to like hyper tailor your experience to.
Or a guaranteed mythic with 2 minimum greater affixes or something. Some crazy stuff.
Get, lots of Fists of Fate to drop. Now, lastly, we got some quality of life stuff, in the interface.
Pick up
you can
radius
like reset your passive tree for some cost. Maybe you can even have separate, let us have wardrobe setups for different configurations. Maybe you want your pit passive tree setup and your nightmare dungeon passive tree setup, whatever the case. You got your keyword search up here, so you can find like all the goblin nodes if you want to, do a crazy goblin build. So that's basically the system, folks. We're progressing our tree. We're working towards pinnacle bosses. We're customizing our endgame experience all on top of our existing power progression systems. This right here, this is the kind of thing I've always meant when talking about a meta progression system. And what's important here is to look at the big picture ideas. Let's not get bogged down in details. This is just a concept. We can tweak whatever. Let's not overlook the forest for the trees here. Because in my opinion, something like this would keep me playing the game longer, because even if I feel strong enough and don't feel like I'm making much progress in my character power, my tree will be progressing, and I'll still have pinnacle bosses to chase. I'll feel like I'm making meaningful choices in what endgame activities I pick based on the rare and legendary whispers that are spawning. Maybe I'm going to want to avoid some of them. Maybe I'll want to chase towards them. And I'll feel like everything is tied towards some greater purpose. But I turn the question to you folks. What do you think of this kind of system? Do you not want to see this kind of system in D4? And if so, why not? And what kind of additions do you want to see the devs make in Diablo 4? Sound off in the comments.
Man, great video, dude, here from Riker. Yeah, I really like these kind of ideas, And like I said, it's been proven to be working and being very much liked by the community. and also keeping players engaged for longer, keeping the player retention, keeping more fun in the game. In recent seasons, I guess it's been already quite a bit better. But in season 7, for example, the power creep and everything was just so insane that people were like one-shotting the hardest boss after just a few hours of playing. And with this, like building up, kind of like building your enemies in a way, influencing them, making them much harder, but on the other side, much more rewarding, like the boon and the bane system. That's super cool, Ah, man. Yeah, I like this, guys. I like the video below here. We all been giving so much feedback, but Riker has really been cooking here. So leave a like, leave a comment. I'll link it here in the chat as well. That's been amazing. And I mean, we keep giving a lot of feedback. Some of it gets implemented, but I always like trying to like keep the expectations from my feedback kind of low. This was like some of my season 8 feedback here. And, a lot of that stuff, like some of the stuff makes it in, but a lot of that stuff just doesn't. And this is obviously like a very like high level. This is probably like, expansion kind of territory, what Riker is cooking here. But there's like so much more stuff here, like some long-term wishes. And I also made a tier list here of the different seasons and stuff. I mean, they could do so much, man. Loot filters, stash space. If you're just looking at what PoE is doing, and also Last Epoch with the stash space and the dedicated stash space, like so many quality of life changes, auction house, marketplace. He was like mainly focused on the end game. There's just so much stuff, man, that that could be done. Itemization. This is just not even talking about that. This is like basically focusing on the end game, which is like definitely one of the most important things in the game, and also one of the things that I definitely agree with the community sentiment of what is lacking in Diablo. I think we need a proper endgame system. The pit has been a good start, but it's just not enough. The pit has a lot of problems. I already made separate videos about this. And all the Torment 4 content just gets outscaled after playing. I mean, for like, if you're blasting, it's a few hours. If you're like a bit more slow, it's maybe like a few days. But even then, you're outscaling Torment 4. So getting something like this that basically juices like all these different activities, and most of them, except the pits, are Torment 4 content anyways. So this is all like very capped difficulty that you outscale very fast with your character. So making it exciting, meaningful, rewarding, and more challenging in some way with something like this, Whisper Ancient Favor system would be pretty cool. Check out the video from Riker, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see what's going to happen, guys. I mean, we're going to have the expansion, I guess, here in about half a year, Copium. We'll see, my friends. GG.